Welcome to tonight's story. Today, we explore a long-awaited topic, the goddess Lakshmi. Most people know her simply as the Indian goddess of wealth, gold, and luck, often depicted on vibrant postcards or found in shops selling incense. But her true nature is far deeper, more complex, and frankly, much more demanding. In this lecture, we will uncover her story from unexpected perspectives. We'll learn how she shapes the laws of prosperity, why she never lingers where self-respect is absent, and the harsh lessons she can teach even the highest guardian of the universe. We will also discuss her darker elder sister, Lakshmi, who brings poverty and conflict. We'll find out why they always come as a pair and how to attract fortune without inadvertently inviting household discord. Our journey includes tales of divine deaths, high-level family disputes, mystical plants, and secret forest ascetic practices. But first, I want to sincerely thank everyone who supports the development of this channel. Your support is a strong foundation that allows us to improve our content. And a heartfelt thanks to those who encourage us with kind words in the comments. You have no idea how much that motivates us to create such detailed episodes. My name is Michael Reynolds, you're watching Ancient Secrets. Thanks for watching my content. I'd appreciate your subscription and like. Enjoy the video. Our story begins in an era of immense cosmic tension, when the very existence of the universe hung by a thread. The cosmic ocean churned. Gods, known as devas, and demons called asuras joined forces with a single goal: to obtain Amrita, the nectar of immortality. This event, called the churning of the ocean, marks the starting point. Using the giant serpent Vasuki as a rope and Mount Mandara as the churning rod, they stirred the ocean for millennia. One can only imagine the exhaustion among both armies. When the ocean's waters had already yielded deadly poison and wondrous treasures like the white horse Uchai Shravas and the elephant Airavata, the surface suddenly glowed with an unusual light. Texts like the Vishnu Purana describe this moment. From the milky waters, like a flash of lightning, emerged a goddess of extraordinary beauty, seated on a blooming lotus. She held a lotus in her hand and shone with the color of molten gold. This was Lakshmi, also called Shri, the very embodiment of prosperity, luck, and royal power. The reaction of those present was predictable and frankly very human. The Devas, until then focused solely on immortality, suddenly realized that eternal life without prosperity and joy was a dull prospect. The Asuras, always craving power, instantly understood that power without financial support is just hard work. Everyone wanted to claim her. Great sages began chanting hymns immediately. Heavenly elephants and digajis scooped water into golden pitchers and performed rituals right there in the ocean. But the most interesting part began afterward. According to ancient tradition, a deity of such high status had the right to choose her own husband. And here, the real drama begins, full of hidden meanings that scholars still explore today. Lakshmi, barely born, found herself under hundreds of eyes filled with desire, but her gaze was cold and discerning. She sought not just a protector, but one who could match her nature. Let's examine why she rejected seemingly worthy candidates. This is not just a myth about a wedding, it is a profound philosophical treatise on where true luck resides. She looked at the Devas. They were beautiful and strong, but in their eyes was need. They had lost their status, their kingdoms were ruined, and they desperately needed her to regain their former glory. Luck does not favor those who are overly dependent or needy, so she turned away. Then she looked at the Asuras. They were full of energy but overwhelmed by anger and passion. Wealth in the hands of a wrathful being leads to destruction, while Lakshmi's nature is to preserve and harmonize. So the demons were left empty-handed as well. Next, her gaze fell on great ascetics and yogis. They seemed perfect candidates, calm and balanced. But even here, Lakshmi found a flaw. Those who have conquered their anger often lack the passion for life. They are too detached. Why would a goddess of prosperity favor one who lives in a cave sustained by air alone? Luck is useless where there is no activity or desire to improve the world. For example, the great sage Durvasa was known for his fiery temper. With him, you cannot build stability. Others, like Markandeya, were so absorbed in meditation that they might not have even noticed her presence. Then her gaze rested on one god who behaved completely differently, Vishnu. While others elbowed each other to gain the goddess's attention, Vishnu calmly observed, or, according to some versions, even half slept. He showed no desperation, greed, or excessive desire. He was self-sufficient. In him was strength without aggression, wisdom without cold detachment. Scholars see this as the key principle. Lakshmi, as the energy of prosperity, comes where there is a foundation to sustain her. Vishnu represents the principle of preservation, the earth element. He is the one who upholds the universe. The goddess placed a garden of flowers called Vaijayanti around Vishnu's neck, choosing him as her husband. This gesture symbolized that wealth and luck must serve a noble purpose, the preservation of peace, not selfish desires. The Asuras were furious but powerless. The choice was made. It is interesting to note that Lakshmi did not merely stand beside him. Legends say she took her place on his chest. There is even a special mark on Vishnu's body, a curl of hair called Shrivatsa, considered her abode. This detail is very important. She did not dissolve into him, but became an inseparable part of his essence. Now, when Vishnu looks at the world, his gaze is softened by Lakshmi's mercy. However, the union is not just an idyllic happy ending. It is the beginning of a complex dynamic. Lakshmi is known as Chanchala, restless and changeable. Like water, she cannot stay in one place for long. Appeasing her is difficult. Keeping her is even harder. People often think that once they acquire wealth, they become its masters. The story of Lakshmi's birth hints at the opposite. She chooses her owner, and her criteria are strict. She passed by the most powerful beings in the universe to select the one who did not chase after her. There is a certain irony here, relevant even in our world. Thus, the union of Vishnu and Lakshmi became the foundation for maintaining harmony in the universe. But, as we know, gods do not remain idle forever. The world changes, ages shift, and the divine couple would descend from the heavens to earth many times, taking on various, sometimes unexpected forms. Now our story moves to a realm of a completely different nature, Vaikuntha, the highest spiritual realm in Vishnu's celestial sky. Here, time as we know it does not exist. There is no aging or parting. The word Vaikuntha means a place without worries. And of course, this absolute harmony would be impossible without the constant presence of Lakshmi herself. Let's take a look at their life beyond the bustling events of creation. If you have ever seen traditional images of this pair, you might have noticed an interesting detail. Vishnu reclines on the coils of the giant serpent Adishesha, gently rocking in the causal ocean's waters. Lakshmi sits at his feet, carefully massaging them. To a modern viewer, this scene might seem somewhat patriarchal, suggesting a subordinate position for the wife. However, scholars of Vedic culture and iconography argue that this image holds a profound esoteric meaning, far removed from a simple depiction of domestic inequality. In Indian tradition, Vishnu's feet are considered the source of all auspicious energies flowing into the universe. According to the scriptures, even the sacred river Ganges originates from the big toe of his foot. When Lakshmi touches his feet, she is not merely serving her husband. As an active energy, she stimulates this flow. Without her touch, without her participation, Vishnu would remain in a state of deep sleep and passivity. Philosophically, he represents potential, a static force, while she embodies kinetic energy, action. There is an ancient concept of Shaktiman and Shakti. Shaktiman is the one who possesses power, Vishnu, and Shakti is the power itself, Lakshmi. They cannot exist without each other, just as fire cannot exist without heat or the sun without light. The Vishnu Purana offers a striking metaphor. She is the moonlight if he is the moon itself. Try separating the light from its source. It's physically impossible. Thus, by massaging his feet, she completes a cosmic circuit, causing energy to circulate and sustain life across all worlds. We have mentioned that her place is at his chest, near his heart. But why then is she often depicted at his feet in iconography? This is a paradox: closeness and service. Being at his heart, she governs his emotions. At his feet, she directs his actions. This is the perfect balance. One of Vishnu's names is Srinivasa, meaning the abode of Sri, another name for Lakshmi. This explains why the preserver god is always calm and confident. Fortune, prosperity, and harmony are not things he seeks externally. They are qualities he always carries within. Lakshmi fills his existence with meaning, while he gives her form and direction. Ancient texts like the Pancharatra describe the relationship through the lens of the cosmic judicial system. Vishnu, as the guardian of Dharma, embodies law and justice, an impartial judge. When a living being errs and breaks universal laws, the just judge must issue a stern verdict. Yet, beside this judge stands an intercessor. Scholars call Lakshmi the cosmic advocate or mediator. She embodies mercy. When Vishnu is ready to punish a sinner, Lakshmi intervenes, softening his wrath. She seems to say, "Wait, give them a chance to reform. Look at their good qualities." She transforms rigid law into compassion. Perhaps this is why, in popular tradition, worship of Lakshmi is often seen as a safer and quicker path than direct appeal to Vishnu. Approaching a mother is easier than confronting the supreme director of the universe who follows strict protocols. Interestingly, Lakshmi never feels jealous of Vishnu's devotees, despite the attention he gives them. On the contrary, it is believed the best way to please her is not by asking for wealth directly, but by showing respect to her husband. This works both ways. Vishnu is especially favorable to those who honor his wife. This creates a close circle of love and respect that yogis and sages aspire to enter. Their dialogues in Vaikuntha are full of mutual respect and subtle interplay. They often discuss the fate of worlds, and despite her gentle appearance, Lakshmi holds the decisive voice in the distribution of blessings. After all the material resources of the universe belong to her. Vishnu merely governs them, but she is the true owner and mistress of energy. However, this idyllic harmony, where they enjoy each other's company among gardens of precious gems, cannot last forever. The universe is a restless place where the balance between good and evil is constantly disturbed. The demons, defeated during the churning of the ocean, gather strength. When their influence becomes critical, mere observation from Swayambhu's abode is not enough. When the world faces danger, Vishnu must leave his cozy bed on the serpent Adisesha. Here, the greatest devotion of Lakshmi is revealed. She could remain safe in her celestial palace, waiting for her hero's return, but her nature won't allow her to leave him alone. The vow of eternal union is unbreakable. Wherever he goes, she follows. If he descends to earth as a king, she is born as a queen. If he becomes a warrior, she becomes his faithful companion. Before we move on to their famous incarnations as humans, we should recall that Lakshmi has a form far grander than that of a beautiful woman. She is the very foundation on which we stand. We need to briefly revisit some characters familiar to regular viewers, we have already explored in detail the story of the demon Hiranyakashipu and his son Prahlada, where Vishnu appeared as the fierce man-lion Narasingha. That story was about personal devotion and protection of faith. Today, we focus on the background of those events concerning the elder brother of that tyrant, the demon Hiranyaksha. While Prahlada's conflict was ideological, Hiranyaksha approached the matter more pragmatically and on a grander scale. This powerful asura did not merely seek to seize power. He aimed to literally uproot the gods and humans by stealing the earth itself. We have mentioned this before, but let's look at it from another angle. We need to understand who Earth is in the context of our heroine. In Indian mythology, Earth is not just a lifeless rock floating in space or a resource. She is a living goddess known as Bhudevi. But is she Lakshmi? That's a great question, and the answer depends on which part of India you ask. If you travel to South India, to Tamil Nadu, and visit temples of the Sri Vaishnavism tradition, you will see Vishnu flanked by two consorts. Sri Devi is our golden Lakshmi, and Bhudevi is the goddess of the earth. There, they are worshipped as two distinct personalities, two aspects of divine care. Sri Devi governs spiritual wealth, while Bhudevi oversees material support and patience. In this tradition, the famous poet saint Andal is considered an earthly incarnation of Bhudevi. However, from a broader philosophical perspective, scholars agree that Bhudevi is an expansion or simply a denser form of Lakshmi herself. If Lakshmi in the heavens is radiance and fortune, Bhudevi is Lakshmi made tangible and solid, the one who nourishes us all. It is the same energy performing different functions. Returning to the story, Hiranyaksha displayed demonic ingenuity. He dragged Bhudevi to the very depths of the cosmic ocean, Garbhodaka. Imagine the goddess state, accustomed to purity and light, now plunged into darkness and primordial chaos. Without solid ground, the world descended into disorder. The gods panicked, wandering the heavens as they literally had nowhere to descend. Seeing his wife suffering in the form of the earth, Vishnu could not appear there in his radiant four-armed form, holding the lotus and discus. For the dirty work at the ocean's bottom, a suitable form was needed. He took the shape of the giant boar, Varaha. This avatar choice often raises questions but is entirely logical. The wild boar is an animal that thrives in mud, has a powerful sense of smell, and can dig the earth with its tusks. Vishnu became the one who could find his beloved even in the deepest darkness. According to legend, Varaha dove into the murky ocean waters. His roar shook the universe, and his eyes blazed like twin suns, piercing the gloom. The battle with Hiranyaksha was fierce, but since we have already covered the avatar's heroic deeds in other lectures, here we focus on the moment of reunion between the savior and the saved. When Varaha defeated the demon, he gently lifted the earth on his massive tusks. This image of the boar carrying the globe became one of the most popular in Indian art. But let's look beyond the picture. In the texts describing this moment, a surprisingly tender dialogue unfolds. Prithvi, trembling from the terror she has experienced, sees before her not a fearsome beast, but her eternal partner. To her, those tusks are not weapons, but the most reliable support. She addresses him with a question that feels remarkably relevant even to us today. "O Lord, I am your eternal companion, but how can I stay afloat in this ocean of uncertainty?" Varaha reassures her, promising that from now on, he will always uphold her. In this myth, Lakshmi appears not as an untouchable queen, but as one who needs protection. This reflects an important aspect of feminine energy in ancient understanding. The earth is fertile and generous, but vulnerable. If left unprotected, it sinks into an ocean of greed and exploitation, embodied by the demon Hiranyaksha. Interestingly, after the rescue, Prithvi did not simply return to orbit. According to some versions of the myth, it was after this encounter with Varaha that their son Narakasura was born. This adds a layer of complexity and intrigue to the story. Even divine couples can face challenges, so to speak, but we will explore that another time. What matters here is the transformation of the image. Lakshmi here represents nature itself. Accordingly, the Vedic culture's attitude toward nature is based on the idea that polluting the earth or exploiting it ruthlessly is essentially an insult to the body of the goddess of prosperity. One cannot worship Lakshmi in a temple asking for wealth while littering the streets or poisoning the soil, because it is the same entity. Prithvi is Lakshmi enduring hardship. Her color in this form is often described as dark, the color of fertile soil or a storm cloud. Unlike the golden Lakshmi of Vaikuntha, she is heavy, material, real. By saving her, Vishnu shows that spirituality does not mean rejecting matter. Matter, the earth, must be spiritualized, lifted from the depths, cleansed of the filth of demonic desires, and restored to its rightful place. Those familiar with our previous discussions might feel a sense of déjà vu, and rightly so. We recently examined the story of King Bali, spoke of the wisdom of the demon teacher Shukra, and even released a lecture titled Divine Cunning or Vishnu's 3 Steps. It may seem like we keep circling the same legend, but as they say, history is one and perspectives are many. Last time, we followed with fascination how Vishnu, disguised as the dwarf Vamana, cleverly outwitted the noble but somewhat overconfident demon king. We admired the god's cunning and the drama of the kingdom's loss. But let's be honest, we completely overlooked the feminine perspective. Where was our heroine during all this? What was Lakshmi doing while her husband, shrunk to the size of a child and holding an umbrella, approached the court of the great monarch? Was he simply sitting in Vaikuntha, watching the events unfold on a celestial screen? Of course not. As I mentioned earlier, according to the Pancharatra texts and other Puranic sources, Lakshmi never parts from Vishnu. It is a law. So when he decided to incarnate as Vamana, she had to descend as well. But here arose a delicate problem, even a narrative deadlock. Vamana is a brahmachari, a young celibate student monk who accepted alms. By status, he could not have a wife, especially one as lavish as Lakshmi. If she appeared beside him adorned in jewels and silks, the entire pretense of the humble supplicant would be ruined. No one would believe that this young man only needed 3 steps of land. Here, the remarkable flexibility and wisdom of Lakshmi come into play. She takes the form of Padma or Kamala, which means lotus. She is not born in a royal palace, nor does she emerge from the earth as before. Legend says she appeared in the waters of a beautiful lake, gently rocking on a lotus flower near the scene of events. She chose the role of observer. This is a fascinating moment, interpreted as the highest form of trust. Imagine the situation. Your husband is about to undertake a risky mission, planning to outwit the powerful emperor of the universe, armed only with a wooden umbrella and his wit. Any earthly woman might want to intervene, offer support, give advice, or at least stand nearby with a first aid kit. But Lakshmi is a goddess who understands that sometimes the best help is not to interfere. She patiently waited in her lake, knowing that Vishnu had begun his divine play, his Leela. While Vamana measured the universe with his giant steps, taking from Mahabali the power over earth and sky, Lakshmi was invisibly present in the process. After all, what was Bali's kingdom that Vamana was taking? It was Lakshmi herself, wealth, power, brilliance, glory, all her aspects. This creates a paradoxical picture. Vamana came to take Lakshmi from the demons and return her to the gods, represented by Indra, but he did so in a way that revealed the unprecedented generosity of King Bali. When Bali agreed to give everything he had, he effectively gave Lakshmi into Vishnu's hands voluntarily. And you know what the scriptures say? Those who willingly give their wealth to God never lose Lakshmi. She remains with them, but in a different form, not as material gold, but as a spiritual fulfillment. That is why Bali, though sent to the subterranean realm of Sutala, received a blessing envied even by Indra himself. After the drama of the 3 steps concluded and cosmic order was restored, Vishnu, having completed his mission, went to that very lake. The reunion is described as quiet and tender. Padma, the goddess of the lotus, awaited her lord. There is no grand wedding or loud declarations, only the understanding that they are together again, ready to return home or continue their journey. In this incarnation, Lakshmi teaches us the art of active waiting. She was not a passive victim of circumstances. She consciously chose a form that would not disrupt her husband's plan. This is a lesson in subtle energy interaction. Masculine energy paves the way, acts actively, sometimes aggressively or cunningly. Feminine energy creates space, preserves calm, and waits for the right moment to unite. Here we see a completely different facet of our heroine. If as Prithvi she was the one needing rescue from the mud, as Padma she is self-sufficient purity, not requiring saving, simply waiting for her time. She did not intervene when Vamana performed his famous trick, because she understood the higher purpose of this act. Surely, in our lives, there are moments when we must step aside, become the lotus in the pond, and let events unfold naturally, trusting loved ones or fate. We don't always need to rush ahead or try to control every step. Sometimes, strength lies in stillness. But as you understand, stillness is temporary. The idyll at the lake was only a brief pause before one of the most tragic and profound love stories known to humanity. In their next incarnation, they will not get away with a short scene by the pond. They will face birth into royal families, exile in wild forests, and a war that will shake the foundations of the cosmos. We move from the cool water surface to the scorching dry land of the kingdom of Mithila. There is no place here for passive waiting. Here, hard work reigns. And it is here, amid dust and blazing sun, that a story begins. One that seems familiar to all, but which we will try to view more closely. As many recall from our extensive lecture on Ramayana, the epic's plot centers around the prince Rama. But if we shift the camera's focus, we see King Janaka, ruler of Mithila, engaged in an activity quite unusual for a monarch. He is plowing the land. This was not a whim or a hobby, but a sacred ritual necessary to appease the heavens and call rain upon the parched fields. When Janaka's plow plunged deep into the earth, it struck something hard. It was neither a stone nor a tree root. From the furrow, the king pulled out a golden box containing an infant girl covered in soil and dust. She was named Sita, a name that simply means furrow. It's important to recall the earlier chapter about Pudeva. Sita was not born from a woman's womb. She was a Unija, born not of flesh, but of the earth itself. She was literally a daughter of the soil. This creates a fascinating lineage. Lakshmi was born of the ocean, then became the very earth, and now emerges from the earth in human form. From the very beginning, This girl carried within her a tremendous hidden power of nature. There is a childhood episode of Sita's that is often omitted in brief retellings, yet it reveals much. One day, while playing in the palace, young Sita effortlessly lifted and moved the giant bow of Shiva kept by her father as a sacred relic. To understand the scale, this bow was so heavy that hundreds of warriors could not budge it. Janaka was astonished when he witnessed this. He realized that marrying his daughter to an ordinary prince was impossible. Her husband must possess strength equal to the divine, or the union would be unequal. This is why the condition of the Swayamvara was set. Only the one who could lift the bow would win Sita's hand. When Rama arrived in Mithila, we know what happened. He didn't just lift the bow, he broke it in two. But let's consider this from Sita's perspective. For her, it was not just a contest of strength, it was a moment of recognition. The one capable of wielding Shiva's weapon was equal to her in inner power. Their marriage united two aspects of the divine, Rama as the embodiment of Dharma, the law, and Sita as the embodiment of the energy necessary to fulfill that law. They returned to Ayodhya, and it seemed their life in the palace would be happy. But, as explored in another lecture, fate, or rather the will of the gods, had other plans. Rama was exiled to the forest for 14 years. Here is the turning point in understanding Sita's character. Rama, a noble husband, tried to dissuade her from going. He vividly described the horrors of the Dandaka forest: wild beasts, thorns, lack of comfort, dangerous demons. He said, "Stay in the palace, wait for me, it is safe here." An ordinary woman might have obeyed, but Sita gave him perhaps the first serious challenge in their marriage. She did not weep over lost finery. Her arguments were firm and philosophical. She told Rama that without her, his dharma would be incomplete. Just as a shadow cannot leave its object, nor the radiance leave the sun, so too must they be together. Scholars see this as an expression of her Ichcha Shakti, the energy of will. She went to the forest not as a victim of circumstances, nor as a submissive wife following her husband by habit. It was her conscious choice. Some texts even hint that Sita understood the true purpose of their journey. The palace's comfort was a cage for their mission. Their real task was to destroy the evil that had spread through the forests and the island of Lanka. By shedding silks and donning coarse bark cloth, Sita performed an act of profound renunciation. Yet notice the irony. As a daughter of the earth, she was returning to her origins. The palace was an artificial environment. The forest, nature, and earth were her true element. She was not afraid to sleep on the grass because the grass was part of her, part of Bhudevi. In this act, the essence of Lakshmi's feminine energy as a spouse is revealed. She was willing to endure hardship not for suffering's sake, but for the integrity of their union. She understood that without her, Rama in the forest would be merely a warrior hermit. With her, he remained the king, even without a crown, because Shri, the royal fortune, walked barefoot beside him. They left the weeping Ayodhya. Sita followed Rama, and behind her came the devoted Lakshmana. This trio ventured into the wilderness, heading toward events that would forever alter the mythological landscape. Sita appeared delicate, but inside her was a core stronger than that very bow of Shiva. She did not yet know that ahead awaited not just life in a hut, but a confrontation with an evil so vast it shook all three worlds. Her beauty, which was meant to be a gift, became a burden in the wild forest, attracting the attention of those who would have been better off never seeing her. Soon, the peaceful life of forest hermits would be shattered by the arrival of the ruler of Lanka. But we will not delve into the complexities of this great war here. Detailed lectures already exist that carefully explore the abduction, captivity, fiery trials, and second exile. Repeating these stories would be unnecessary. What interests us is the very nature of Lakshmi's feminine energy. We often see her as obedient, patient, and forgiving. However, ancient texts preserve a tale of a moment when the goddess of fortune was challenged in her own home. Let us imagine Vaikunta, where Vishnu and Lakshmi reside in eternal harmony. It seems nothing dramatic could happen in such a place, yet ancient scriptures tell a story that proves even divine ideal can collapse due to a single rude violation of personal boundaries. According to Puranic tradition, it all began on earth. A group of great sages gathered by the Sarasvati river to perform a grand Vedic sacrifice. During preparations, a serious theological dispute arose among the venerable elders. They could not agree on which member of the Supreme Trinity, Brahma, Shiva, or Vishnu, was the most worthy and benevolent, and to whom the main fruits of the ritual should be dedicated. To resolve this dilemma, the sages chose among themselves the strictest and most uncompromising ascetic named Phrigu. He was tasked with personally visiting each of the three gods and testing their patience and benevolence. Phrigu, a man of immense spiritual power but also great pride, set out on his journey. First, he visited Brahma, his cosmic father. Entering his halls, the sage neither bowed nor greeted him. Brahma, expecting respect from his own creation, was deeply angered but restrained himself from punishing the audacity. Next, Phrigu went to Mount Kailasa to see Shiva. Seeing his spiritual brother, Shiva joyfully rose to embrace him, but Phrigu rudely pushed the god aside, declaring Shiva's appearance inappropriate. Shiva became furious, grasped his trident, ready to strike, but his wife Parvati's intervention prevented disaster. Having drawn conclusions about the tempers of these two deities, Phrigu proceeded to Vaikunta. He bypassed the guards and brazenly entered Vishnu's private chambers. The scene he found is described in the scriptures as the embodiment of tranquility. Vishnu lay peacefully on the coils of the great serpent, while Lakshmi gently massaged his feet. The sage expected the host to immediately rise and greet such an important visitor, but Vishnu remained in deep meditative trance, not even opening his eyes. For Phrigu, whose ego was already inflated by his role as judge, this was the last straw. Blinded by anger, he approached the bed, lifted his foot, and struck the sleeping Vishnu hard in the chest. In Vedic culture, a kick is the highest form of insult, and to strike the protector of the universe should have led to instant destruction. But Vishnu's reaction astonished everyone. He opened his eyes, saw the heavily breathing sage before him, gently rose, and apologized. Vishnu folded his hands and said, "Great sage, forgive me for not noticing your arrival and not honoring you properly. My chest is as hard as diamond, and your foot is as delicate as a lotus flower. You must have hurt yourself badly." With these words, the god seated Phrigu and began carefully massaging the very foot that had struck him. During this massage, Vishnu subtly pressed on a special mystical eye located on the sage's foot, symbolizing his pride. Instantly, the sage's ego deflated. He gained true insight, was overwhelmed with tears of remorse, and recognized Vishnu as the supreme and most merciful deity. It seemed the conflict was resolved. Justice prevailed through absolute forgiveness and humility. The sage departed to share the results of his experiment with the people of Earth, but Lakshmi remained in the room, deeply disagreeing with this outcome. In the eyes of the goddess of prosperity, her husband's act did not appear as divine mercy, but as weakness and betrayal. Why? To understand, we must recall a detail mentioned at the very start of this story. Where exactly is Lakshmi's abode? That's right, on Vishnu's chest, marked by the sacred sign of Sharbatsa. When the sage struck Vishnu's foot, it was not just a blow to the god's body, it was an insult to the very doorstep of the goddess of fortune herself. He violated her domain, her honor, and her dignity. Lakshmi turned to Vishnu, and her voice, usually as sweet as nectar, now sounded like cold steel. She asked how he could allow a mortal to commit such a sacrilege and go unpunished. How could he caress the foot of the one who defiled her home? For Lakshmi, this episode embodies a fundamental cosmic law. The energy of prosperity, respect, and dignity cannot reside where insults are tolerated. It does not matter what high spiritual motives underpin this forgiveness. If the boundaries of the home are trampled, the home ceases to be safe. Lakshmi did not throw a tantrum or demand explanations. The energy of abundance simply flows away from places where it is not properly welcomed. She told Vishnu that she could no longer remain in Vaikuntha, a place defiled by the touch of an arrogant man's foot. The goddess turned away from her celestial husband, left the halls of the spiritual realm, and descended to earth. Her departure was a catastrophe for the cosmos. Without Lakshmi's presence, Vaikuntha instantly lost its radiance. Flowers withered, precious gems dulled, and Vishnu himself sank into a state of deep apathy. This myth teaches us a harsh and practical lesson. We often hear that spirituality means endless patience and turning the other cheek. But Lakshmi reveals the other side of the coin. Self-respect is an indispensable part of prosperity. Fortune flees from those who allow themselves to be trampled upon. Descending to earth, the offended goddess began an entirely new phase of her existence. She no longer sought protection from her husband, choosing instead to prove her complete independence. Leaving her divine home, deeply wounded, she did not create a scene. Instead, she chose a path considered the most challenging yet powerful form of transformation in the Vedic tradition: asceticism. Passing through the layers of cosmic space, Lakshmi searched for a place untouched by celestial intrigues or earthly distractions. For her voluntary exile, she chose the dense, impenetrable forests on the western part of the Indian subcontinent. In ancient texts, this harsh region is called Karbir. Today, a bustling city filled with the scent of spices and exhaust fumes stands there. But back then, it was a pristine wilderness hidden behind a thick wall of tropical trees, intertwined vines, and dense mists rolling down from mountain ridges. The choice of such a bleak place was clearly driven by her desire for complete solitude and maximum contrast. Leaving behind the cool, gem-studded halls of Vaikuntha, the goddess of abundance, whose name is synonymous with luxury and unmatched comfort, voluntarily gave up all external symbols of power. There is a bitter irony in this. After all, to whom do all rulers and even the highest beings of the three worlds turn with prayers for financial well-being? She removed her golden bracelets, sat on the damp earth, crossed her legs in the lotus position, and entered deep meditation. Common logic suggests that wealth should attract even more wealth, but our heroine breaks this stereotype. She retreats into the forest not to attract the attention of her offending husband or force his repentance. Her goal is far more fundamental. She asserts her absolute autonomy. She proves that the source of her power lies not in her status as the wife of the supreme ruler, but within herself. Her days passed in strict silence. Birds dare not sing loudly in her presence, and wild predators, sensing the immense tension in the air, respectfully avoided the area of her meditation. During this long period of solitude in the depths of Karbir, an astonishing transformation of her image took place. Lakshmi ceased to be merely the companion of the universe's guardian. She concentrated her energy and became an independent, indomitable force, Mahalakshmi, meaning the Great Lakshmi. If you ever visit her main temple in modern-day Kolhapur, pay close attention to the ancient Murti, the principal statue of the goddess. It is strikingly different from the glossy images we are used to, the gentle maiden in a pink sari massaging her husband's foot. Mahalakshmi of Kolhapur is carved from a single piece of black stone and has 4 hands. But instead of the usual lotuses symbolizing softness and submissiveness, she holds unmistakably clear objects. In one hand, she grips a heavy battle mace, symbolizing the destruction of mental ignorance and brute force. In another, she carries a massive shield called Hetaka, a direct sign that she now protects her personal boundaries and allows no one to cross them. Her third hand holds a bowl for gathering energy, and the fourth bears the fruit of the citrus tree Mahalunga, symbolizing fertility and earthly blessings. Moreover, her head is crowned with an elaborate headdress, above which looms the open hood of a cobra. This is the classic iconography of an independent supreme deity, capable of both generously bestowing gifts and mercilessly punishing. What is especially fascinating is that in this stern form, the goddess needs no male counterpart to feel whole. Theologians and scholars of Hinduism note that Karveer is a unique place where feminine energy manifests in its purest, most concentrated form. Typically, in Indian culture, the power of Shakti is balanced by the presence of the male principle. But here, Mahalakshmi reigns alone. She generates prosperity not through the role of a submissive wife, but from her own bottomless source. This ancient myth touches on a deeply psychological theme that still resonates today. How often do people, faced with disrespect, remain in destructive environments out of fear of losing social status, money, or familiar comfort? Lakshmi vividly demonstrates that true wealth is above all inner dignity. Empty apologies or philosophical justifications cannot appease her. Fortune returns to a person only when the balance of respect is fully restored. The atmosphere of ancient Karveer, thick with the smoke of her ascetic fires, gradually became a new center of attraction in the universe. Rishis, yogis, and even some insightful celestial beings, upon learning where the true mistress of resources resided, began secretly gathering at the forest's edge. They quickly realized that blessings must now be sought directly from her, bypassing the complicated celestial bureaucracy. Mahalakshmi graciously received their prayers, but remained steadfast in her decision not to return to the defiled home. Her autonomous forest realm began to flourish, fueled by her own spiritual energy. Naturally, any attentive listener wonders what was happening to her abandoned husband during this time. While the goddess forged her independence in Kolhapur, the supreme abode was plunged into a profound crisis. It turns out that even an absolute god cannot fully govern the world when his active energy departs from him. The all-forgiving nature he once took pride in before the sage Friyu became a source of loneliness. He spent days lying on the coils of the serpent, staring into emptiness. And even the pleas of other gods to intervene in mortal affairs went unanswered. Without his Shakti, Vishnu lost all interest in maintaining cosmic order. The golden halls of the celestial realm quickly faded, the heavenly gardens ceased to bear fruit, and the universe began to slowly but surely slip into a state of depressive chaos. Vishnu decided to follow her to Earth. Descending into the dense material world, he chose the picturesque yet wild hills of Venkatadri in the southern peninsula as his place of residence. There, he took on a new name, Srinivasa. There is a bitter irony in this choice. The name Srinivasa literally means the abode of Shri, referring to the place where Lakshmi dwells. Yet the paradox is that Lakshmi was precisely the one who was no longer with him. He was an empty dwelling, a form without content, waiting to be filled. With no retinue, no palaces, not even a roof over his head, the guardian of the universe found a vast, abandoned termite nest. This giant anthill was securely hidden beneath the gnarled roots of a sprawling tamarind tree. Srinivasa entered this earthen mound, closed his eyes, and sank into a deep trance. Years passed, seasons changed, yet he remained motionless, as if merged with nature itself. When fortune leaves you, even if you possess immense potential and encyclopedic knowledge, you find yourself literally trapped in an anthill. You have absolutely nothing. You fall to the very bottom of the social and energetic ladder. One who was once accustomed to receiving offerings from hundreds of worlds now sits in darkness and silence, deprived even of basic sustenance. The situation became so critical that the other higher gods grew genuinely concerned. Brahma and Shiva, after consulting, decided to help their brother, but they could not simply bring him a basket of fruit. That would have violated the purity of his voluntary asceticism. Instead, they devised a clever plan. Brahma took the form of a well-groomed cow, while Shiva became her calf. In this disguised form, they allowed themselves to be sold to the local earthly ruler from the ancient Chola dynasty. Each morning, the royal herdsman would lead the large herd to graze at the foot of the Venkatadri hills. Every day, this unusual cow, quietly separated from the others, approached the anthill beneath the tamarind tree and willingly gave her milk. She poured the nourishing liquid directly into the hole in the earthen mound to feed the exhausted Srinivasa. This continued for quite some time until human interference disrupted the divine plan. The herdsman eventually noticed that the best cow in the herd gave no milk in the evenings. Suspecting something was amiss, he decided to follow the animal. What he discovered among the trees filled him with rage. He saw the valuable royal property wasting its milk on some dirty earthen heap. Grabbing a heavy wooden staff, the herdsman struck the cow with full force. But Srinivasa, inside his refuge, could not allow his savior to be harmed because of him. He immediately rose from the anthill and took the blow himself. The heavy stick split his forehead. According to the texts, divine blood flowed abundantly onto the dry earth. The herdsman, realizing he had just struck not an animal, but a powerful forest hermit, fainted in terror. The Chola king, abandoning all state affairs upon hearing of the nighttime incident, rushed to the scene. In panic, he tried to appease the injured hermit, offering any compensation. Though Srinivasa felt physical pain, he did not destroy the ruler, but calmly explained the harsh law of karma. A monarch is always responsible for the actions of his servants, even if he gave no direct orders. This incident became a turning point. It forced Vishnu to finally emerge from his trance and leave his cramped earthen refuge forever. He had to heal the deep wound on his forehead with medicinal forest herbs. Interestingly, in memory of this event, the main statue of the deity in these lands is still adorned daily with a special white band of healing camphor across the forehead. We discuss this story in detail not merely for the curious glimpses into the lives of ancient rulers. This narrative vividly illustrates that the process of reclaiming lost energy and prosperity is incredibly difficult, painful, and far from always graceful. To regain Lakshmi's favor, the Almighty God had to endure loneliness, hunger, humiliation, and even physical injury. He did not use his mystical power to instantly create a new, luxurious palace. Instead, he humbly accepted the rules of the material world, where everything must be earned, and every step upward requires tremendous effort. Srinivasa emerged from the ruined anthill a changed being. He was no longer the proud celestial resident expecting unconditional worship and forgiving insults at his spouse's expense. He became a humble traveler who learned to appreciate every drop of cow's milk and understood firsthand the true value of care and respect. The harsh lesson taught by Lakshmi's sudden departure was fully absorbed. Now he faced the most difficult trial: to find her new incarnation on earth and prove through his actions that he was worthy of her return. Fate, as if testing his readiness, soon presented an unexpected surprise. Wandering the slopes of the leafy hills, Srinivasa encountered a group of hunters chasing a wild elephant. This noisy pursuit accidentally led him right into a beautiful flowering garden. There, he met the very girl for whom he had undertaken this long and painful journey from the spiritual realm. She looked at him with a mix of fear and confusion, failing to recognize the poorly dressed stranger with a healing wound on his forehead as the great guardian of the universe. But Srinivasa recognized her instantly. It was she, Lakshmi herself, for whom he had left the radiant Vaikuntha, hidden for years in the earthen anthill, and endured the herdsman's blows. In this earthly life, the girl was called Padmavati. But let's explore how the goddess of prosperity ended up in this forest and who her father was. Here, attentive listeners will likely experience a strong sense of déjà vu, and rightly so. Padmavati's adoptive father, a local ruler named Akasharaja, was a righteous but childless king. To obtain the long-awaited heir, he decided to perform a special Vedic ritual. While personally plowing a field with a golden plow, he stumbled upon something extraordinary. We again see a king leading a plow, and once more, a miraculous discovery in the earth, just as Janaka once found Sita. Folklorists and theologians often debate why mythology so persistently repeats this motif, but keen observers understand the significance. In Indian philosophical thought, there is a strict concept: the goddess of prosperity must always be earned through labor. A king plowing the land with his own hands symbolizes that even absolute power must work to gain fortune. The difference between these two incarnations lies only in subtle details. While Sita was found directly in the soil as the very flesh of the earth, Akasharaja discovered an unusually large lotus flower buried in the ground. The flower was incredibly heavy, and the king had to exert great effort to lift it. Upon opening its petals, he found inside a baby girl, Padmavati. The king immediately understood that the child was a direct gift from Vishnu and Lakshmi. Realizing who stood before him in the garden, Srinivasa resolved to take action. Through his foster mother, he sends a message to the palace of King Akasharaja. There, the god faces a harsh confrontation with the rigid social reality. Upon hearing the proposal, the king openly laughed. He had no intention of giving his precious lotus-born daughter to a forest wanderer with no noble lineage, and more importantly, no wealth. According to Vedic customs, a royal wedding required enormous expenses. Thousands of guests had to be gifted with gold, herds of prized elephants displayed, the entire principality fed, and a huge bride price paid. Srinivasa, naturally, did not even own a hat. What is truly remarkable and unique in world mythology is how the god solves this financial problem. he did not resort to magic or turn river stones into diamonds, thus preserving the balance of the material world. Instead, Srinivasa chose to play by human rules. He went to take out an official loan. His lender was Kubera, the supreme banker of the gods, treasurer of the universe, and guardian of all subterranean treasures. The scene of this transaction is described in ancient texts with bureaucratic precision. Kubera, known for his pragmatic mindset, did not hand over the money out of old friendship. Between them, a strict debt contract was drawn up on palm leaves, recording the transfer of a colossal sum, 14 million gold coins. As guarantors and official witnesses, Brahma and Shiva themselves signed. According to tradition, this document is still kept in the celestial archives. The loan terms were truly demanding. Srinivasa committed to paying enormous annual interest until the very end of the current historical age, Kali Yuga. Only after the end of time would he be allowed to start repaying the principal. With this massive funding, our hero was able to organize a wedding that entered legend forever. Padmavati and Srinivasa were reunited, and Lakshmi once again took her rightful place beside her husband. But what truly captures the imagination is that this ancient mythical debt gave rise to the richest religious institution in the modern world. This is the Temple of Venkateswara in the city of Tirupati, built on the very hills where our hero wandered. Every day, tens of thousands of people line up in endless queues to throw their gold rings, stacks of money, and precious jewels into giant steel chests called hundis. Popular belief holds that Srinivasa is still paying those very interest installments to Kubera. Accordingly, every pilgrim who makes a donation becomes a direct participant in this cosmic repayment. In return, the deity, feeling indebted to his earthly creditors, generously bestows luck and material prosperity upon them. This is a unique form of relationship with the higher powers, not through blind fear, but through a form of mutually beneficial business cooperation. Lakshmi thrives in this temple precisely because the energy of money is in constant, continuous motion. It returns to her husband through the hands of millions of ordinary people. This story clearly teaches us that even for a god, luck has a concrete price. Prosperity is a loan that must be serviced with honesty and hard work. However, many forget one detail. The energy of abundance never comes alone. Lakshmi has an elder sister who emerged from the primordial ocean a little earlier, but brought with her very different gifts. Where large amounts of money appear, poverty, greed, and discord always lurk invisibly nearby. To keep Lakshmi in the home, one must know how to properly appease and keep her somber relative at bay. Now, let us mentally return to the very beginning of our story, to the moment of churning the ocean of milk. The gods received the poison Hala Hala, and then the shining goddess of fortune appeared. The chronology of this process has a delicate nuance. The scriptures say that before the beautiful Lakshmi rose from the waves, the ocean gave birth to a completely different being. Meet a Lakshmi. The prefix a in Sanskrit means direct negation, literally not Lakshmi. She is also respectfully called Jyesta, meaning the elder. By birthright, she appeared first, embodying all the sludge, bitterness, and fatigue accumulated at the bottom of the cosmic waters over millennia of chaos. If the younger sister shines like molten gold, smells of flowers, and wears the finest silks, the elder sister is, frankly, a figure for the brave. Ancient texts describe her as a hunched, thin woman with sunken cheeks and disheveled hair, dressed in dirty rags. She firmly holds an ordinary broom, and her mount is a stubborn donkey, or according to some versions, a cawing crow. Not exactly the kind of image one would want to hang in a gilded frame above a desk. A Lakshmi brings poverty, quarrels, envy, debts, and total misfortune. She thrives on domestic dirt, loud scandals, laziness, and deep despair. A reasonable question arises. Why did the gods need to create such an unpleasant character at all? Why release her from the ocean? The answer lies in understanding the psychology of resources. These two sisters are cosmically inseparable. It is impossible to get a big slice of the pie called fortune without risking attracting the elder sister's attention. As soon as large sums of money, a long-awaited promotion, or even quiet family harmony appear in your life, a Lakshmi immediately materializes on the doorstep. In our reality, she takes the form of envious colleagues, sudden lawsuits, inheritance disputes, or simply the destructive paranoia of losing status. You've probably read news stories about how large lottery wins often lead people to ruin, harmful habits, and broken families. This is the direct work of Jesta. She comes where people are completely unprepared to handle their wealth responsibly, where they relax and allow ordinary pride to overpower reason. There is an ironic myth about how the elder sister was also given a husband. Since the beautiful Lakshmi went to the universe's guardian, Jesta needed to be settled somewhere quickly. She was married off to a stern forest ascetic named Dusaha. But family life, to put it mildly, did not go well from the very first day. The groom was a righteous man who valued order, mantras, and fragrant incense. His new wife, however, fainted at the smell of incense and was physically repulsed by the sounds of sacred hymns. On the other hand, she instantly flourished where people argued, littered, and blatantly lied to each other. Eventually, the unfortunate sage sought help from Brahma, who advised him to take his wife to a place ruled by chaos and quietly disappear. So poor Dusaha simply fled, leaving his wife to wander the world in eternal search of a suitable home. Accordingly, a serious problem arose for people: how to invite fortune into the home without letting poverty and quarrels in through the door? Fighting a Lakshmi openly is absolutely useless. She is still an ancient goddess, albeit with a negative aspect. She must be skillfully neutralized, or better yet, appeased. Indian folk wisdom offers a brilliantly simple method which an observant traveler can see on the dusty streets of Delhi or Mumbai at every turn. This is the famous talisman of fresh lemon and green chili peppers strung on a black thread. This charm, known as Nimbu Mirchi, hangs over the heavy doors of wealthy jewelry stores, at the entrances to poor huts, dangles from the bumpers of brand new cars, and even appears on monitors in modern offices. Many Europeans think this is just strange national decor. In reality, it is a deliberate offering. The two sisters have radically different tastes when it comes to food. Golden Lakshmi loves all things sweet. She is traditionally offered fresh milk, thick honey, fruits, and various Indian sweets like laddus. The somber Lakshmi, however, cannot stand sweets. Her favorite food is anything extremely sour, bitter, and incredibly spicy. The logic behind this ritual is delightful in its practical simplicity. The shopkeeper takes exactly 7 fiery chili peppers and 1 very sour lemon. He ties them together and hangs them outside right on the heavy barn lock. When a Lakshmi, drawn by the scent of new money or another success, approaches the house, she immediately sees her favorite treat. She eats the sour lemon, and the burning chili, feels complete taste satisfaction, and, content, leaves to continue her own affairs without even attempting to cross the threshold and enter inside. Meanwhile, her younger sister Lakshmi ignores the bitter sour entrance and freely steps into the house, where sweet offerings, precious perfumes, and a clean altar await her. This is a highly elegant way to send a message to the universe. We know very well about your existence, dark side of life. We pay you respect, but within our domain, you have no place. Appeasing the elder sister from a safe distance proved far more effective than naively pretending she does not exist. This cultural mechanism works flawlessly on a psychological level as well. By acknowledging that behind every loud success there is inevitably a shadow of envy and risk, a person automatically becomes more cautious. They stop boasting about a recently purchased castle or new position and begin to carefully monitor their words and actions. They keep a kind of mental lemon ready so the sourness can sober them up during moments of excessive euphoria. Fortune absolutely does not tolerate fools blinded by their sudden greatness. When the dazzling light of material prosperity strikes too brightly, it is very easy to lose orientation and miss the moment when travel slips through the open door. To confidently walk through the twilight of human desires and not confuse true spiritual wealth with a cheap imitation, our golden heroine requires a special, very specific guide. One who can see clearly where absolutely everyone else goes blind. In Indian mythology, every deity has a personal mount or vahana, which is not just a means of transportation, but a living symbol of the rider's hidden qualities. Our golden goddess of prosperity rides a creature whose choice has sparked much debate among scholars. Her faithful companion is a white owl known as Uluka. Admittedly, a rather unusual pairing. Lakshmi is associated with dazzling light, the morning dawn, the shine of precious metals, and blooming lotuses. She embodies day and joy, while the owl is a strictly nocturnal bird, silent, preferring to hide from sunlight in old tree hollows or abandoned attics where drafts and spirits roam. Why then did the goddess who grants material prosperity choose such a dark, secretive creature as her helper? The paradox of this choice holds a harsh, even sarcastic diagnosis of humanity as a whole. Let's explore the biological and mythological features of this bird. Owls are nearly blind in bright daylight. For them, the sun is a source of disorientation. In the context of our story, bright day symbolizes a period of absolute financial well-being. When everything is perfect, bank accounts overflow, and careers soar, people often fall into a state of daytime blindness. Big money blinds fools. They begin to believe in their own infallibility, lose touch with reality, fail to notice the needs of others, and make fatal mistakes. Wealth acts like a spotlight shining directly into the eyes. And it is precisely in these moments that the goddess's vahana, wise Uluka, prefers to close her eyes and simply sleep. She seems to show that true wisdom is utterly useless to one intoxicated by their own success and unwilling to see beyond their own nose. But the situation changes dramatically when twilight falls, when crises, deaths, and life's troubles arrive. Most people panic. In the dark, they see no way out, make foolish decisions driven by despair, and lose what little reason they had left. Yet the owl sees perfectly in total darkness. Its vision is designed to detect the slightest movement in the gloom. Uluka symbolizes the ability to maintain absolute clarity of mind when everything around is falling into the abyss. Those who truly master Lakshmi's energy do not panic. They can spot new opportunities and the right paths even in the darkest nights of life. Also, notice how this bird hunts. Unlike a hawk, which loudly screeches while diving at its prey, the owl attacks completely silently. Its feathers are structured to muffle the sound of flight. This is a direct instruction on how to handle finances. Real great wealth always requires silence. Those who constantly shout about their income, boast brands, and flaunt their riches resemble a foolish daytime bird attracting predators' attention. And we remember well from earlier who comes to that noise, a Lakshmi with her ever-present broom. Those who possess true prosperity act quietly, deliberately, and without unnecessary fuss. Interestingly, in some parts of India, the very word ulluka is used as a mild insult to describe a simple-minded person. Here lies another dose of divine irony. The goddess of fortune seems to hint, if you cannot manage the resources entrusted to you, if money makes you arrogant and foolish, then you are the very blind ulluka sitting on a branch in daylight. But if you show patience, learn the laws of this world, and know how to wait for your moment, the owl becomes a symbol of profound transformative intelligence. There is another fascinating aspect. The owl can turn its head almost 270 degrees. It controls all the space around without moving from its place. To maintain prosperity, one must have a broad outlook, constantly scanning reality for threats and opportunities without making unnecessary moves. Lakshmi herself generates energy and movement, while her vahana embodies absolute stillness. This is the perfect balance. Active force relies on immovable wisdom. We tend to think of luck as chance or fortunate coincidence, but the owl beside the goddess completely shatters the stereotype. Luck watches us keenly from the darkness. It observes how we behave when no one is watching. It analyzes our actions in moments of weakness and despair. Only those who maintain inner dignity and cool reason during trials earn the right to greet the dawn alongside the golden goddess. This forms a very coherent concept. Lakshmi is the resource itself, and her white owl is the safety manual for working with that resource. This bird, silently gliding through the night air, teaches us a simple truth. To shine by day, you must learn not to fear the dark and to see the essence of things hidden behind outward glitter. Our heroine's nature demands constant, continuous movement. One day, she decides to pay a visit to the most magnificent abode imaginable, causing even the ruler of the heavens to become quite uneasy. This visit is thoroughly documented in the ancient epic Mahabharata, specifically in its monumental section called Shanti Parva. Mounting her silent bird, the goddess arrives at the dazzling celestial capital, Amaravati. The thunder god Indra greets her with undisguised surprise and even caution. The reason is that until this historic moment, the radiant guest had been comfortably and lawfully residing in the palace of his chief political rival, the powerful king of the Asuras named Bali. Here, for the attentive listener who has been following our story from the beginning, a very reasonable question should arise. There seems to be an obvious chronological inconsistency, wouldn't you say? We have already discussed in detail the story where Lakshmi, completely devoted to her husband Vishnu, quietly waited for him in the form of a beautiful lotus on the lake, while he, disguised as a dwarf, took power over the worlds from Bali. Could she have lived simultaneously in the demon's palace? Wouldn't that contradict her vow of eternal loyalty to the protector of the universe? There is no mythological inconsistency here. Indian texts are incredibly profound and often separate divine functions. The gentle wife of Vishnu does not arrive at the heavenly capital of Kidri. Instead, it is a very specific, impersonal form of hers that appears, Rajya Lakshmi. This represents the concentrated energy of absolute royal authority, state fortune, social sovereignty, and global economic influence. It was this powerful energy of prosperity that once favored the ambitious Bali. As long as the demon followed laws of honesty and justice, Rajya Lakshmi ensured incredible financial growth for his dark empire. But when Vishnu took those territories with his famous 3 steps, he effectively redirected this power back to the rightful rulers. The epic does not depict this as a dull redrawing of borders, but as a conscious visit of the very energy of fortune to its new leader. So, when Indra is face to face with the personification of this resource, he asks a perfectly logical question. Politely, but with clear tension, he wonders what went wrong with Bali, the defeated predecessor. Why did Raja Lakshmi abandon such a successful ruler of the Asuras at the peak of his career? Had the great Bali stopped offering her generous tributes or been stingy with gold for new temples? The goddess's answer is perhaps the first ever strict masterclass in corporate ethics and rigorous everyday discipline. It turns out that the mistress of worldly resources is not interested in long rituals or mountains of incense if they are not supported by basic, boring daily habits. She sits before the thunderer and lists her rules like a strict auditor arriving for an unexpected inspection. Her speech sounds surprisingly relevant even today. I dwell where there is cleanliness, where people rise early, where truth is spoken and laziness is unknown. It sounds like a ready-made summary from a high-end business coach's lecture, but these truths were recorded thousands of years ago. First, she speaks of impeccable cleanliness. Lakshmi never brings dirty clothes, unwashed dishes, or cluttered spaces. We remember her elder sister Lakshmi, who loves all that domestic mess. But here, it's about crystal clear purity of thoughts and absolute transparency of intentions, where cunning intrigues constantly weave and partners hide real incomes from each other. Mental filth inevitably accumulates. Fortune flows away from such dubious places as water leaks from a cracked jug. King Bali, intoxicated by his boundless power, gradually neglected this transparency. Second, there is a strict rule about rising early. The goddess tells Indra directly that she cannot tolerate those who lounge in warm beds after sunrise. In Vedic thought, early morning is a time of sattva, absolute goodness, ideal for deep concentration and strategic planning. Those who miss this precious time willingly surrender their life energy to tamas, laziness, and destructive apathy. It is impossible to build a strong empire or successful enterprise if the leader sleeps until noon. The third point is uncompromising truth. The goddess of fortune insists that lies destroy the foundation of any prosperity. Remember what any successful long-term economy is based on: trust and impeccable reputation. If a merchant consistently cheats customers, he might gain a solid short-term profit, but inevitably loses his name in the long run. Lakshmi fundamentally does not support deceivers. As we recall, the demon king began breaking this promise, lightly assuming his social status allowed him to interpret the truth to his advantage. Finally, there is a complete absence of laziness. Lakshmi demands constant, purposeful action from her followers. Wealth is not a huge chest of gold coins to sit on for the rest of one's days with feet dangling. It is a rapid, turbulent flow. If a person stops developing and learning, the goddess quietly packs her things. She simply finds it unbearable to be near those who arrogantly believe they have already achieved everything in life. Listening to this dry, incredibly pragmatic speech, Indra probably swallowed nervously. He realized that acquiring the resource base from a defeated enemy is only half the battle, and the easiest part at that. Now he must maintain Spartan discipline in his heavens, or Raja Lakshmi will leave him just as easily as she left the Asura ruler. In this profound excerpt from the Mahabharata, the goddess openly presents her strict conditions. This conversation serves as a brilliant bridge to understanding that prosperity is not something flat or uniform. By building life according to the goddess's strict rules, a disciplined person gradually notices that fortune manifests in many, sometimes surprising forms. To make this complex mechanism work at full strength, one must understand all 8 aspects on which true, unwavering well-being rests. In modern culture, the word wealth has become irrevocably linked to the state of a bank account. If someone has many paper or electronic bills, society automatically considers them successful. But ancient Indian texts offer a completely different, much more pragmatic and multi-layered approach. There is the concept of Ashta Lakshmi, where Ashta means 8. The goddess of fortune is divided into 8 independent streams. If even one is blocked, the entire life structure begins to tilt suspiciously. Let's examine this octal system in detail. First, we look at the form called Adi Lakshmi. The word Adi means primordial or original. This is the inner core, the basic spiritual support and deep sense of calm. Without this foundational setting, any external achievements feel like a waste of time. At the opposite end of the spectrum is Dhana Lakshmi, concrete, tangible money, gold, securities, and assets. In our society, people usually focus exclusively on acquiring Dhana, completely forgetting the other 6 pillars. This often leads to comical or even sad results. Take for example the form called Dhanya Lakshmi. She governs food, stable harvests, and quality physical nourishment. Consider the practical benefit of a multi-million fortune if its owner develops a severe ulcer from constant stress and his daily diet consists of bland oatmeal in water. In the Vedic paradigm, such a person is considered an absolute pauper, even if they live in a huge mansion. Dhanya represents the ability to enjoy good food, digestive health, and abundance at the dining table. Gold bars cannot be eaten. Without Dhanya's blessing, any wealthy person is doomed to a rather joyless existence. Next is Dhairya Lakshmi, the energy of courage, determination, and inner bravery. It is common to meet people who have amassed a decent capital but are terrified of losing it. They tremble over every penny, afraid to invest, afraid to change a dull job or move to another city. Their vast resources often lie unused, stagnant. The energy of Lakshmi provides a person with the psychological resilience needed to remain steady amid even the slightest market fluctuations. Without this form of prosperity, money ceases to be a tool of freedom and instead becomes heavy chains that breed constant anxiety. Another important aspect is Gaja Lakshmi. The word _quote_3_ means elephant. In ancient times, owning prized war elephants was a symbol of the highest political status. In modern terms, this represents power, social influence, and the ability to manage others effectively. You might earn a fortune through hard work alone, sitting quietly at your computer, but if you lack authority, if your colleagues don't respect you, and your subordinates openly ignore your instructions, you are missing the energy of Gaja Lakshmi. This energy embodies royal dignity, allowing one to lead a team without outbursts or excessive micromanagement. Another form that often sparks debate is Santana Lakshmi. Traditionally, she is seen as the goddess of offspring, granting healthy children. However, scholars interpret this image more broadly. Santana represents any legacy that remains in the world after we are gone. This could be devoted students, creative projects, buildings you've constructed, or books you've written. What's the point of building a vast business empire if there's no one to carry it on and it collapses the day you retire? The energy of Santana ensures that your hard work endures through time. The seventh pillar of well-being is Vidya Lakshmi. This is knowledge, useful skills, education, and talents. Ironically, many try to acquire wealth without this form, seeking easy shortcuts. But Vidya is a unique kind of capital that cannot be stolen, devalued, or destroyed by fire. A person with deep professional knowledge can rebuild their life from scratch even after sudden bankruptcy. Intelligence and the ability to learn are the most reliable currencies of all. Those with great wealth but little intellect often lose their finances very quickly. Finally, there is Vijaya Lakshmi, the goddess of victory. You might wonder why she's important in peaceful civilian life, but Vijaya is not just about triumph on the battlefield. She represents the ability to overcome daily bureaucratic hurdles, win difficult legal battles, pass exams successfully, or simply conquer one's own morning laziness. This is the energy of the final push when you are just a few steps from your goal. Sometimes, a person has the right knowledge, courage, and resources, yet projects fail at the last moment for inexplicable reasons. This signals a severe shortage of Vijaya. Just one drop of luck is missing for ultimate success. Looking at this eightfold system, we see how simplistic and shallow our initial understanding of wealth truly is. The Indian tradition sternly reminds us that true life balance cannot be achieved by blindly accumulating material goods alone. A life missing even one of these energies, whether health, knowledge, social authority, or courage, will always feel incomplete. To appease Ashtalakshmi means learning to manage all 8 streams wisely, maintaining strict order across every aspect of existence. Knowing the theory is one thing. The real challenge lies in how to invite this multifaceted power into your home in practice. How to send the right signals in your daily routine so it doesn't get lost and finds its way to your doorstep. We already know that our golden goddess demands discipline and cleanliness. Yet, once a year comes a time when these rules are elevated to an absolute, transforming into a grand festival familiar to anyone interested in Eastern culture. This is Diwali. Diwali is usually associated with the return of King Rama to the city of Ayodhya. But if we shift our focus to our heroine, we find a much deeper meaning. Diwali is celebrated on the night of Amavasya, the darkest new moon of the Hindu month Kartika. It is the darkest night of the year. The timing is no coincidence. In a world plunged into absolute darkness, it is hardest for the goddess of fortune to find her way to your doorstep. Preparation begins well before sunset and resembles a collective frenzy over hygiene. People clean their homes as if the strictest inspection in the universe is coming tomorrow. And in a way, it is. We remember that Lakshmi's elder sister adores old clutter, dust, and mustiness. So this thorough cleaning is not just a household chore, but a battle for territory. Throwing out broken dishes or old clothes is a way of banishing poverty and discord, making room for new energy. There's wisdom in this. It's hard to invite something new and beautiful into a home filled with old, useless clutter. During these days, everything accumulated over the year is swept out, and every door lock is carefully oiled so luck can enter smoothly, without creaks or obstacles. When the house finally shines with cleanliness, it's time for light. The main symbol of the festival is the diya, small clay lamps filled with clarified butter or vegetable oil, with a wick made of pure cotton. They are placed everywhere, on windowsills, doorsteps, roofs, and even in gardens. Hundreds, even thousands of tiny lights cut through the darkness of Amavasya. Why is this done? Mythologically, these lights serve as landing beacons for Lakshmi. It is believed that on this night, the goddess descends to earth, wandering the streets and peering through windows. She searches for homes truly ready to welcome her. Here, a charming human element appears. People don't just light lamps, they open all doors and windows wide, even if it's chilly outside. This is like an invitation card. No one wants luck to pass by thinking the owners are asleep or indifferent. To ensure there is no doubt, intricate rangoli patterns are drawn at the entrance using colored sand, flower, or flower petals. At the center of these patterns are often tiny footprints pointing inward. These divine footprints symbolize that the goddess has already crossed the threshold and brought her blessing. Yet, looking at this ritual without sentiment, one might ask, is the all-powerful goddess really so helpless that she can't find her way without a clay lamp? Of course not. The light of the diya is a metaphor for our inner state. Ancient texts hint that Lakshmi does not enter homes where the hearts of the owners are filled with darkness, even if the windowsills hold the most expensive candles and the air smells of the finest perfumes. Darkness here means greed, anger, envy, and the very laziness we discussed earlier. By lighting these external lights, a person commits to igniting the light within themselves. This is a time for forgiving old debts and forgetting grievances. In India's business circles, Diwali marks the start of the new financial year. Merchants close old account books and open new ones, sprinkling them with sacred water. This is an act of absolute trust in the future. Therefore, if you expect prosperity but harbor resentment toward a neighbor or anger toward a colleague, your lamps are merely pieces of burnt clay. Fortune is subtle. It senses insincerity. It is fascinating to observe how people's behavior changes during these days. Everyone strives to look their best. New clothes are purchased, family heirlooms are taken out of safes. There is even a special day, Dhanteras, when it is customary to buy at least a small amount of gold or silver, or at the very least, new kitchenware. This is not just shopping, it's a ritual that acknowledges the value of the material world. Lakshmi is the goddess of the tangible realm, and disregarding material things is offensive to her. We cannot ask for prosperity if we disdain money or see it as something unclean. When midnight arrives and the entire city transforms into a sea of lights, homes perform the Lakshmi Puja ceremony. On the altar, sweets, coins, and jewelry are placed. The air fills with the scent of incense, overpowering all other fragrances. At that moment, the true purpose of the ritual unfolds, a feeling of unity and hope. Yet, even in such a solemn moment, it's important to maintain balance. Ironically, modern celebrations often turn into competitions over whose fireworks are louder or whose home is more brightly decorated. In the pursuit of outward sparkle, it's easy to lose the very wisdom symbolized by the goddess's white owl. The festival concludes with the distribution of sweets, a vital tradition. Wealth that is not shared, locked away in a dark cellar, quickly spoils and turns into a Lakshmi, the opposite of prosperity. By sharing food with friends, neighbors, and even strangers, a person affirms a role as a conduit of energy. It's as if they tell the universe, "Look, I have enough and I'm willing to share so the flow continues." Thus, this festival is not merely a dazzling display of fireworks, but a profound psychological practice of cleansing both space and mind. It prepares a runway for good fortune by removing obstacles like chaos and negative emotions. But when the lights fade and the morning coolness replaces the festive bustle, the most important question arises. Why, despite all the lamps, the clean corners, and sincere prayers, does luck often visit only briefly before disappearing without a trace? The answer lies in one of the goddess's most well-known and honest names, Chanchala. This word means restless, changeable, or one who cannot stay in one place for long. Prosperity itself is inherently dynamic, never static or permanent. For many, this is disappointing. We tend to think of wealth as a fortress to be built once and for all, surrounded by high walls and locked with the heaviest steel gates. But Lakshmi becomes unbearably bored in such a fortress. She is not immovable property to be locked away in a cellar, but a living, active energy, the very pulse of the universe. Trying to dam a mountain river without any spillways quickly turns pure water into a stagnant, foul-smelling swamp. And we know well who thrives in such swamps. Her elder sister, a Lakshmi, bringing decay, gloom, and endless discord. The irony is that the tighter someone clenches their fist, trying to keep money only for themselves, the faster it slips through their fingers. Greed is the surest way to scare Lakshmi away. She is the daughter of the Milky Ocean. The ocean is never still, its waves constantly ebb and flow, guided by the moon's rhythm. Thus, ancient tradition holds that resources must always move, bring benefit, and spread joy not only to their owner, but to many others. Only in this continuous cycle does the energy of prosperity feel truly at home. This dynamic is reflected in daily life. In India, Lakshmi is often depicted alongside Ganesha, the elephant-headed god of wisdom. This pairing is profound and precise. Prosperity without wisdom is just a huge pile of gold scrap that will eventually crush its owner under its weight. Wisdom without material support often remains a beautiful theory. Ganesha guides Chanchala, giving her a clear direction so her movement doesn't become chaotic and meaningless. Therefore, when we ask for luck to stay in our homes, we are really asking for wisdom, to know where to direct it and how to use it wisely. Why does the goddess so easily leave even the most powerful and righteous kings? We have seen the grand triumphs and crashing falls of figures like Indra and Bali. The root cause is always the same: lost vigilance and sudden arrogance. As soon as someone believes they fully own Lakshmi, they make their most fatal mistake. She belongs to no one and never will. She is an absolutely free elemental force. Her name, Chanchala, serves as a constant reminder. Today you may be at the top of the world, but tomorrow you could have nothing if you fail to uphold her strict rules of purity and truth. There is, however, one very important exception. There is only one place in the entire universe where Chanchala becomes calm, gentle, and constant: on the chest of her eternal consort, the god Vishnu. We have mentioned the Sri Vacha mark, a special curl of hair on his body symbolizing her abode. Why does he find stability there? Because Vishnu embodies the principle of maintaining and preserving harmony. He does not try to possess her or lock her away. Instead, he offers unconditional love and infinite space for her to express herself. In this divine union, the masculine provides a reliable form, while the feminine fills it with radiance, warmth, and life. Lakshmi's story is not just a tale of gold, coins, and jewels. It is a narrative about how our own attention and values are structured. We have journeyed from the turbulent primal ocean to the shining halls of temples, from the forest wanderings of Sita to the festive lights of the celebration. At every step, we have seen that luck is not a random lottery prize, but the result of a complex interplay between our personal efforts and divine grace. It can manifest as the heavy, dense energy of the earth in the form of Bhudevi, or as light and elusive as the scent of the finest perfumes. In today's world, the image of Chanchala is more relevant than ever. We learn not to cling to things, to understand the fluidity of all resources, and to cherish rare moments of true well-being. True prosperity is not a final destination on a map, but the process of eternal movement itself. It is the unique ability to remain pure, honest, and active in each moment, regardless of circumstances. Consider that within each of us lies our own milky ocean, where a constant struggle unfolds between our bright dreams and darker impulses. In this inner movement, our personal unique luck is born every day. It may come as a brilliant idea, an unexpected call, or simply a deep sense of satisfaction from honest work. There is no need to chase it recklessly, stumbling and pushing others aside as once did the Asuras. It is enough to create a pure and bright space in your life, truly worthy of its presence. Lakshmi is always nearby, as long as a tiny spark of kindness burns in your heart and your mind remains clear and calm. Her wise white owl, Uluka, continues its silent watch, observing how we handle challenges and how we cherish our small joys. When a new day dawns, the golden goddess will rise again from the ocean's waters to bless with her merciful gaze those who are truly ready for her arrival. This concludes our discussion. Friends, may the ancient image of the radiant goddess bring you the long-awaited peace and confidence for the days ahead. True Lakshmi is, above all, that deep inner calm within the soul, something that cannot be bought with any treasure in the universe. Remember, the world always cares for balance and the well-being of every living being, even when it may not seem that way. The story continues. Great cycles follow one another, and the divine pair always lovingly and forgivingly guard this world in their hearts. Until we meet again, you've been watching Ancient Secrets. Thanks for watching and have a great day.